Have you ever experienced the moment when someone believes they've won, but in reality, you're the one holding all the cards? When I heard my husband Ryan call me worthless at his family's dinner, I didn't break down or argue. Instead, I simply smiled, stood up, and walked away. I got into the Aston Martin Vantage he had dreamed about for years and drove off. The look on his face in my rearview mirror said it all. He finally understood what he had lost. But let me start from the beginning. Before we dive back in, let us know where you're tuning in from. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button because tomorrow, I've got something even more special lined up just for you. Have you ever had that moment when someone thinks they've won, but you're holding all the cards? That moment when you know exactly what you're worth, even if they don't? That was me, the night Ryan, my husband, called me worthless at his family's dinner. I didn't cry or fight back. I just smiled, stood up, and walked out. I got into the Aston Martin Vantage, Ryan's dream car, the one he'd talked about for years, and drove away. The look on his face, as I pulled away, said it all. He finally realized what he'd lost. But I should start at the beginning. My name is Jessica Mitchell. Actually, everyone calls me Jess. I grew up in a modest neighborhood in Seattle, raised by parents who valued hard work and self-reliance. My dad was in construction, my mom a nurse. They scraped and saved to put me through college. I was the first in my family to earn a degree. I started in tech sales, not glamorous, but I had a knack for reading people and spotting needs before they even knew they had them. By 27, I'd turned modest savings into smart startup investments. By 30, I was an angel investor. That's when I met Ryan. He was pitching his app at an investor meetup. Confident, charming, ambitious. He captivated the room, including me. We married after 18 months. The wedding was lavish. Patricia, his mother, made sure of that. From day one, she made it clear Ryan was marrying down. But she was determined to elevate the occasion. And I let her. I was in love and believed that was all that mattered. What I didn't understand then was how appearances ruled the Mitchell family. They lived in a sprawling bell house overlooking Lake Washington. Their Christmas cards, perfectly coordinated outfits, professional photographers, flawless images of an impeccable family. Ryan's dad, Walter, was a retired executive who golfed daily. His sister, Vanessa, married a surgeon and never worked a day. His brother Kevin and wife Allison orbit around Patricia's son, Ryan, like satellites. Ryan seemed different at first. He laughed off his family's obsession with status. He admired my work ethic, my independence. But looking back, I should have noticed the little things. How he always introduced me as my wife Jessica, rather than letting me speak about my career. How he subtly corrected my table manners at family gatherings. How he framed my insights as his own with his friends. The Mitchells had a brutal tradition, an annual family dinner. It was a ceremony of performance reviews, where achievements were celebrated but shortcomings dissected under the guise of helpful feedback. Patricia was the unyielding CEO. I survived 3 of these dinners before. I smiled through Patricia's backhanded compliments, pretending not to hear the subtle digs about how pretentious I was. This year, the dinner was at Kiyomi, an exclusive Japanese fusion restaurant downtown. Ryan had been tense for weeks. His app was underperforming, and he'd been passed over for a promotion he'd promised everyone was guaranteed. He grew distant, coming home late smelling of whiskey and perfume that wasn't mine. I knew about the affair. I wasn't stupid. But I was trying to figure out my next move carefully. That night at Kiyomi made the decision for me. I arrived separately from Ryan. He claimed a last-minute meeting. But when I gave my name to the maitre d', he looked puzzled. Sorry, ma'am, but the Mitchell party requested no one arriving alone be seated with them. You're welcome to wait at the bar. I frowned, confused. The reservation was for 7 p.m. Where was everyone? The maitre d' checked again, shaking his head. The Mitchells arrived 20 minutes late and were seated in the private dining room, without me. I was soon approached by Patricia herself, looking every bit the perfect blonde socialite, a perpetual look of smelling something unpleasant on her face. The maitre d' held his professional composure, but his eyes confirmed my guess. I wasn't welcome. I see, I said quietly, pulling out my phone to text Ryan. I'm here. The maitre d' says I can't join you. The typing indicator appeared, then vanished, then reappeared. Finally, a message from him. Mom made the reservation. Talk to her. 5 years of marriage had brought me here, barred from a family dinner like an unwelcome stranger. I could have walked away, but something snapped inside me, not anger, but clarity. I told the maitre d', I'll wait at the bar. The bar at Kiyomi was a vision of understated luxury, jade-colored, hand-blown glass fixtures, a wall lined with rare Japanese whiskies. I ordered a neat Yamazaki 12 and sat watching the private room's frosted glass. I could just make out the silhouettes. Patricia's perfect posture, Walter's slouched shoulders, Vanessa's animated gestures, Kevin and Allison's stillness, and Ryan, head bent toward his mother like a supplicant. Then I heard my name. Jess Mitchell. I turned to see Marcus Torres, sharp in a tailored navy suit. Marcus and I had worked together years ago before he took over his family's luxury car dealership. It felt good to see a friendly face. I'm meeting clients, but they're running late. Join me, he offered. Before I could answer, Patricia emerged from the dining room, spotting me immediately. Her voice carried just enough to turn heads. Jessica darling, what are you doing here all alone? Didn't Ryan tell you we changed the reservation time? I kept my voice even. No, he didn't. The maitre d' confirmed she had instructed him not to seat me. Patricia smiled tightly. A misunderstanding, I'm sure. This was a formal dinner. That outfit is rather casual, isn't it? I glanced down, a black silk jumpsuit and heels. Perfectly appropriate. Patricia knew it wasn't about clothes. It was about putting me in my place. Before I could respond, Marcus stepped in, extending his hand. Mrs. Mitchell, Marcus Torres, owner of Torres Luxury Automobiles. A colleague of Jessica's from her early career days. Her eyes widened as she took him in, designer suit, watch, confident demeanor. This wasn't part of her script. Oh, how lovely to meet you, she said, instantly shifting to her society persona. Any friend of Jessica's is welcome. Marcus smiled. Actually, I was just saying she should join me for business. We have some things to discuss. Patricia's expression flickered between confusion and annoyance. Business. Jessica? Jessica is one of our most successful angel investors. Her portfolio performance is legendary. For 5 years, Patricia had never asked about my career beyond vague, your little job references. Ryan had never enlightened her either. Family comes first, Patricia said, turning to Ryan. Jessica, your mother expects you to join us for dessert at least. I stood, feeling the weight of years of humiliation lifting. I think I'll take Marcus up on his offer. Please give Ryan my regrets. Patricia's smile froze. Don't be ridiculous. This is our annual family dinner. Everyone is waiting. I wasn't on the guest list. Give Vanessa my seat. She's been eyeing that promotion to favorite daughter-in-law for years. Her mask slipped, revealing coldness beneath. Patricia said, if you leave now, Jessica, Ryan will be very disappointed. I'm sure he'll survive. He's had plenty of practice disappointing me. Marcus and I walked away. I felt Patricia's gaze burning into my back. I'd never defied her so openly. More importantly, I'd stood up for myself. We settled at a table across the restaurant. Marcus confessed no clients would be joining us. That woman was trying to humiliate you, he said. I smiled ruefully. That's Patricia. She's done it for years, usually with more subtlety. Your husband allows it. Marcus shook his head. He's a fool. For the first time in years, I enjoyed a meal without calculating every word, bracing for the next insult. Later, Ryan stormed over, furious. What the hell do you think you're doing? He hissed. I took a sip of wine. Dinner with an old friend. Ryan barely glanced at Marcus. My mother said you deliberately embarrassed her in front of everyone. That's interesting, I said. Because from where I'm sitting, she barred me from a family dinner and then criticized my appearance in front of the entire bar. Ryan's jaw tightened. You're making a scene. Marcus interjected. The only person making a scene is you, Mr. Mitchell. Ryan finally looked at Marcus, really looked at him. The expensive suit, confident posture, protective way he shifted toward me. And who exactly are you? An old colleague, Marcus said calmly. Owner of Torres Luxury Automobiles. I saw the calculation in Ryan's eyes. His anger didn't disappear, but he masked it behind his charming facade. Torres, I've been meaning to stop by your showroom. I hear you're the only dealer in Seattle with the new Aston Martin Vantage. Ryan's dream car. A special edition, one of 12 worldwide. British racing green with tan leather interior. The perfect status symbol. Maybe I'll come by tomorrow, Ryan said, voice casual, but I knew better. Then he turned back to me. Jessica, Mother expects you to join us for dessert. I said quietly. I've made other plans. Ryan stared, disbelief turning to anger. This is our family dinner. I wasn't invited. Don't be so sensitive. Mother gets caught up in details sometimes. It's not personal. Whatever, Ryan spat. You're impossible. I smiled, feeling something fierce and liberating. Maybe so. But I'm done being invisible in this family. I stood, taking one last look at him. The look he gave me was defeat and fury wrapped into one. I walked away, the familiar purr of the Aston Martin waiting outside. The car wasn't just a vehicle. It was my statement. My new beginning. That night, I drove through the rain-slick streets of Seattle, windows down, wind whipping my hair, a smile on my lips. I was Jessica Mitchell. And I was worth so much more than Ryan, Patricia, or Walter had ever understood. The next morning, I woke with a strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. The events at Kiyomi had left me raw, but also strangely empowered. I wasn't just a woman cast aside by a wealthy family. I was a force they'd underestimated. The Mitchells had spent years underestimating me, and that was about to change. I showered slowly, letting the warm water wash away the remnants of doubt and fatigue. I dressed with deliberate care, a tailored navy suit that fit me like armor, subtle makeup to enhance, not hide, my features, and my hair pulled back into a sleek ponytail. Professional. Confident. Unruffled. Today, I had 3 client meetings scheduled. Each would be an opportunity to prove that Walter Mitchell's veiled accusations hadn't damaged my business acumen or client relationships. My reputation, my work, those were mine alone, untouchable by family drama. Eliza Chen's office was a sleek, modern space in South Lake Union. Glass walls, polished concrete floors, the hum of innovation everywhere. I admired Eliza. Young, driven, brilliant. Her AI healthcare startup was preparing for another funding round, and I was proud to be part of that journey. Eliza, good to see you, I said as she greeted me warmly. I saw Walter Mitchell on Cairo this morning, she said bluntly once we were settled in her glass-walled conference room. Was he subtle? I asked, smirking. Not at all, she laughed. But I appreciate your directness. The Mitchells care about appearances. Theirs, not yours. I nodded, grateful. I understand if you'd prefer to work with someone less complicated right now. Are you kidding? Eliza said, leaning forward. You stood your ground against one of Seattle's old guard families. That's impressive. She paused, then asked the question that mattered most. Are you still fully focused on business despite all this personal drama? I pulled out my tablet, opening the presentation I'd prepared. Judge for yourself. I've analyzed your competitive landscape, funding trends, and investor psychology. Here's how we position you to stand out. For the next hour, We dove deep into strategy, market projections, and investor psychology. By the time I left, Eliza not only confirmed she wanted to continue working with me, but had already referred another founder my way. 1 down. 2 to go. Howard was a more traditional client, a retired software engineer with a sizable portfolio, cautious by nature, exactly the type to be influenced by Walter Mitchell's morning TV segment. We met at a quiet cafe near his Mercer Island home. He was already there when I arrived. Newspaper open beside his coffee. The Seattle Times business section featured a small article about Walter's appearance. "Jessica," he greeted me, folding the paper away. "I was beginning to worry you might cancel." "Why would I?" I asked calmly. He gestured vaguely toward the newspaper. "Given everything, the divorce, the allegations." I interrupted, steady and clear. "Has your portfolio underperformed since you became my client?" Howard blinked. "No, quite the opposite. Have I ever given you cause to question my ethics or judgment? Of course not. Then why would I cancel a meeting with a valued client? My personal life has no bearing on my professional capabilities." Howard studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Fair point. Though I admit, seeing Walter Mitchell on the news this morning gave me pause." "I'm his soon-to-be ex-daughter-in-law," I said quietly. Howard's lips twitched in a reluctant smile. "Also a fair point." We spent the next hour reviewing his portfolio. By the end, he'd reaffirmed his confidence in me and even increased his investment allocation. As I left, he called after me, "Jessica, for what it's worth, I've known Walter for 20 years. Never cared much for him. Too self-important." I smiled. "Your secrets are safe with me." Martin Wright was the most challenging client, a tech entrepreneur who had recently sold his company for a substantial sum. He'd been referred to me weeks ago, before the divorce and the Mitchells' campaign had begun. I wasn't sure if he'd even show up, given the morning's news. I arrived early at the upscale restaurant, secured a quiet table, and waited. 5 minutes past our appointment time, he appeared, slightly out of breath. "Sorry I'm late. Day from hell." "No problem," I assured him. "I appreciate you making the time." Martin ordered a scotch and then fixed me with a steady gaze. "Full disclosure. I Googled you this morning. Found some interesting articles. About my divorce and Walter Mitchell's concerns about ethics. Got it in one." He studied me with open curiosity. Most people would reschedule after that kind of publicity. "I'm not most people," I said. The waiter arrived with his drink. Martin took an appreciative sip. "So convince me. Why should I trust you with my money when the Mitchells act like you're the Antichrist of ethical investing?" I laughed softly. "They think I'm many things, but they've never questioned my financial acumen." I slid a folder across the table. "These are returns I've generated for clients with profiles similar to yours over the last 3 years. Notice the consistent outperformance against market averages." Martin flipped through the documents, eyebrows rising. "Impressive. But numbers can be manipulated." "True," I agreed. "That's why I included contact information for clients willing to vouch for me. Call them." He closed the folder and sat back, regarding me with new interest. "You know, when my buddy recommended you, he said you were razor sharp." He wasn't exaggerating. I believe in preparation, especially entering hostile territory. "Exactly like this." Martin grinned and raised his glass in a small salute. "Well, Miss Harmon, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Now, what should we do with my suddenly very large bank account?" By the time I left the restaurant, the sun was setting over Elliott Bay, painting the water in shades of gold and crimson. I'd successfully preserved 2 client relationships and secured a new one, all while the Mitchells' Whisper campaign was at its height. It felt like a victory. Small but significant. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Dinner tonight? I want to hear how your day went." I hesitated, then typed back. "Rain's here." It's been a long day. His response came immediately. Of course. Just wanted to check in. Call if you need anything. I smiled at his understanding. Marcus had been a steadfast ally since that night at Kiyomi. But I needed time alone to process everything. The Aston Martin purred to life as I headed back to my condo, a familiar sense of power and control washing over me as I navigated the evening traffic. At home, I kicked off my heels, poured a glass of wine, and carried it to the floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Seattle skyline. The city glittered below as darkness fell. Somewhere out there, the Mitchells were plotting their next move. Somewhere Ryan was perhaps regretting the choices that had led us here. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. An unknown number. Hello, is this Jessica Mitchell? A woman's voice asked. This is Jessica Harmon, I corrected. My name is Diane Lewis from the Seattle Business Journal, she said. I'm working on a story about ethics in tech investment following Walter Mitchell's statements this morning. I was hoping to get your response. The Mitchells were escalating, moving from veiled accusations to media coverage. I took a sip of wine, considering my options. Miss Lewis, I'd be happy to give a statement. But first, can you tell me more about the focus of your article? Of course, Diane replied. Examining the intersection of personal relationships and professional decisions in Seattle's tech investment community. Mr. Mitchell raised concerns about ethical boundaries, especially given your former marriage to his son. And have you spoken directly with Walter Mitchell for this piece? Yes, I interviewed him this afternoon. Did he mention me by name? A slight pause. Not explicitly, but the context was clear. I murmured. Well, Miss Lewis, here's my statement. I laid it out calmly but firmly. I'd built my investment career on detailed market analysis, industry expertise, and a track record of identifying promising opportunities before the broader market caught on. Personal connections had never influenced my professional judgment. I welcomed scrutiny. My results spoke for themselves. Diane pressed on, asking if I would address the allegations of conflict of interest more directly. I inquired what specific allegations she meant. She repeated that Walter didn't name me explicitly but implied concerns. I interrupted gently. I'm sure you understand the difference between implications and allegations. One can be printed in a reputable business journal. The other might be defamatory. I offered to discuss my investment philosophy and provide verified performance metrics for key investments over the past 5 years, anonymized to protect client confidentiality. After hanging up, I called Linda to brief her. Good instincts, she said. I had defended my reputation without directly attacking the Mitchells. The business journal would have to tread carefully now. But I wasn't naive. The Mitchells were just getting started. The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope. The Mitchells' media campaign had momentarily quieted, but I knew it was only a lull before the next storm. Linda was relentless, digging into their finances and uncovering inconsistencies. Not illegal, but enough to embarrass them if leaked at the right moment. Having this leverage was a quiet comfort, a reminder that I wasn't powerless. My focus sharpened. Each client meeting became a reaffirmation of my competence, a subtle but clear message that I wasn't crumbling under pressure. I was building a new foundation, one that wasn't defined by the Mitchell name or their whisper campaign, but by my own success and integrity. Theo Baldwin, my oldest and most valuable client, called one afternoon. Jessica, he said warmly, I saw the Business Journal article. They included your side of the story. I did, I replied. It was important to be transparent. Theo chuckled. Especially when your competitors are spreading rumors. I appreciate your resilience. He then invited me to a charity gala he was hosting for the Children's Hospital next weekend, mentioning Patricia Mitchell would be there. It would make a statement if you attended, head held high, mingling with the city's elite. I hesitated. I wasn't sure I was ready for that kind of confrontation so soon. It won't be a confrontation, Theo assured me. It's a gathering of Seattle's wealthiest and most influential. Your presence alone would undermine their campaign. He made a compelling point. Hiding away would only feed the narrative that I had something to hide. So I said yes. The week leading up to the gala passed in a blur of meetings, legal consultations, and preparation. The Mitchells were eerily quiet. No TV appearances, no statements. Linda warned me this was probably a regroup, not a retreat. I chose a gown that was unforgettable but tasteful. A deep emerald silk that flowed effortlessly, paired with diamond earrings I had bought myself after my first major investment success. It was a reminder of what I had built on my own. Marcus offered to accompany me, but I declined. This was a battle I needed to fight alone. Arriving at the Four Seasons, I felt the familiar surge of power as the Aston Martin turned heads. Inside, the ballroom glittered with wealth and influence. I spotted Theo near the bar and made my way to him. "Jessica," he greeted me with a warm smile. "You look magnificent." "Thank you," I said, accepting a glass of champagne. He leaned in, lowering his voice. "Half the room is talking about the new pediatric wing, the other half is talking about you." I raised an eyebrow. Should I be flattered or concerned? "Flattered," Theo said. "You're the most interesting thing to happen to this crowd in years." Across the room, I saw the Mitchells, Patricia, Walter, and Ryan with Amber. Patricia's eyes kept darting around, clearly looking for me. "It's time to circulate," I told Theo. "Make the most of this opportunity." That's when I felt it, that prickling sensation of being watched. I turned to find Ryan staring at me, unreadable. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away, whispering something to Amber. I excused myself from a conversation and made my way to the bar, needing a moment. The encounter with Ryan stirred unexpected emotions. Not longing, but anger, disappointment, and a lingering sadness for what might have been if he had been the man I thought he was. Suddenly, Walter Mitchell appeared beside me. His expression carefully neutral, his glass of scotch in hand. "Jessica Harmon," he said smoothly. "What an unexpected pleasure." I acknowledged him, keeping my tone even. "Walter, I'm not sure why it's unexpected. Theo Baldwin is a valued client of mine and enjoys stirring the pot." Walter smiled dryly. "I assume he specifically invited you knowing Patricia would be on the hospital board." "Theo appreciates drama," I replied. "How are you?" He looked tired. "Just expressing concerns many share about ethics in our community." "Many or just you and Patricia?" I asked pointedly. Walter sighed. "This situation has become unnecessarily adversarial. No one benefits from a protracted legal battle, least of all Ryan." "I agree," I said, keeping my voice steady. "So why accuse me of fraud and try to damage my professional reputation? Business and personal matters should remain separate." Walter avoided eye contact. "We want to ensure all parties are treated fairly." "Fair," I echoed. "Is it fair to claim I coerced Ryan into signing a prenup? Is it fair to imply I used family connections to build my portfolio when my success predates my relationship with your son?" "Perspectives differ," Walter replied vaguely. "Indeed," I said, leaning in slightly. "Just like perspectives might differ on certain tax avoidance strategies involving your family's offshore entities." Walter's glass froze mid-air. "I'm not sure what you're implying." I smiled sweetly. "I'm not implying anything unethical. But glass houses and stone rarely mix well." Before he could respond, Patricia appeared beside him, her social smile in place but eyes cold. "How brave of you to show your face here," she said with false warmth. I met her calmness with calmness. "I was just telling Walter how much I appreciate his concern for ethics in business." "You must be very proud." Her smile tightened. "Walter has always been a man of integrity. Something you might learn from." "Oh, I've learned a great deal, from both of you." Her expression shifted to weariness, a warning flickering behind her eyes. Walter placed a restraining hand on her arm. "This isn't the place for this discussion." I agreed. This is a charity event for sick children. Let's focus on what matters. Raising my glass, I said, "Enjoy your evening." As I turned to leave, Patricia couldn't resist one last barb. "Running away, Jessica? You always knew when you were outmatched." I paused and faced her. "Actually, Patricia, I've learned to choose my battles wisely. And right now, my priority is building my future, not fighting over a past that wasn't what I thought it was." I walked away, heart pounding but steps steady. Confronting the Mitchells on their turf had been a calculated risk, and judging by the flicker of uncertainty in Walter's eyes, it had paid off. They knew I was not without resources, not without leverage. The rest of the evening blurred. I didn't speak to Ryan, though I caught him watching me several times. I saw him arguing quietly with Patricia, frustration evident. But I didn't dwell on it. As the gala wound down, Theo found me near the dessert table. "I saw you speaking with the elder Mitchells," he said, a satisfied glint in his eye. Judging by Patricia's expression afterward, it was productive. I smiled. "Let's just say I made my position clear." "Good for you. I've been singing your praises all evening, reminding people of your track record. Doing my part to counteract the rumors. Thank you, Theo. I appreciate it more than I can say." He waved away my gratitude. "Self-interest. Remember. I want to make sure my favorite investment advisor isn't distracted by frivolous attacks." He glanced toward the terrace. I think I saw Ryan heading out there. He looked like a man with something on his mind. I hesitated. I have nothing to say to Ryan. Perhaps not. But he might have something to say to you, something worth hearing. I wondered what made him think that. Call it an old man's intuition. Besides, you faced down Patricia and Walter tonight. Ryan should be easy by comparison. Against my better judgment, I found myself walking toward the terrace doors. The night air was cool and crisp. Ryan stood alone at the railing, staring out at the Seattle skyline. A glass of something amber had brought him in hand. "Ryan," I said softly. He turned, surprise flashing across his face before settling into a neutral expression. "I wasn't sure you'd speak to me tonight." Neither was I. I moved to stand beside him, careful to keep distance. "Theo seemed to think you might have something to say." Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair, an old habit that had once made my heart flutter, now a reminder of his agitation. "I want to apologize," he said finally, "for calling you worthless. It was cruel and untrue. I've regretted it every day since." The apology caught me off guard. Once, those words would have meant everything. Now they felt like too little, too late. "Thank you," I said evenly. "But it doesn't change anything." Ryan nodded, looking down. "I just needed you to hear it." He hesitated, then added, "I saw you talking to my parents earlier. They seemed rattled." I allowed myself a small smile. Let's just say I made it clear I'm not defenseless. His mother wanted to leave immediately after the conversation. His father talked her out of it, saying it would create too much gossip. Ryan glanced at me curiously. "What exactly did you say?" "That's between me and your parents," I replied, "but I suspect they're reconsidering their legal strategy." Ryan studied me for a long moment. "You've changed." "No," I corrected him. "I've always been this person. You just never bothered to see it." He flinched. "That's not fair," he said. "I saw you. I loved you," Ryan said. "You loved the idea of me," I whispered. "The supportive wife who funded your dreams and never challenged your family. The woman who made you feel good without demanding respect." Ryan opened his mouth to argue but closed it. "I did love you," he said eventually. "In my way. Your way wasn't enough. It wasn't love. It was convenience." We stood in silence, the weight of years between us. "Is she worth it?" I finally asked. Ryan's expression darkened. "Amber and I. It's complicated." I laughed softly. It always is, isn't it? Let me guess. She's younger, admires you unconditionally, makes you feel important, until she expects more, until she sees the real you. He stared, realization dawning. You really have changed. The Jessica I knew would never be this brutal. The Jessica you knew was trying desperately to make a marriage work with a man who couldn't stand up to his mother for her. She's gone, I said. And she's not coming back. I turned to leave, feeling strangely light. Ryan's voice stopped me. What about the car? He asked, bitterness creeping in. Was that just to hurt me? I looked back, remembering his face when he saw me driving away in his dream car. No, Ryan, I said firmly. It wasn't about hurting you. It was about reminding myself what I'm worth. With that, I walked back into the ballroom, leaving Ryan alone with his regrets. It felt like closure, on my terms. Theo was waiting near the exit, coat in hand. You look like a woman who said what needed saying. I did, I confirmed. Thank you for pushing me to come tonight. As always, he smiled. Now, let's get you out of here. Outside, the valet brought around the Aston Martin, its sleek lines gleaming under the hotel lights. Theo whistled appreciatively. Now that is a statement piece. I slid behind the wheel and felt a surge of calm. It certainly is. As I drove away, the city lights blurred around me, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. The Mitchells weren't defeated, not yet. The divorce was still ahead, and the legal battles would continue. But tonight, I had stood my ground. I had faced them on their own turf and walked away stronger. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was eager to see where it might lead. 2 days later, Linda called with news. The Mitchells want to meet. Their lawyers reached out this morning to request a settlement conference. I set down my coffee mug, surprised. That's unexpected. What changed? Whatever you said to Walter at the gala, Linda said cautiously. It made an impression. Their tone is different, less combative, more conciliatory. I smiled, remembering the flash of concern in Walter's eyes when I mentioned the Cayman Islands. Let's just say I gave him a gentle reminder that public scrutiny cuts both ways. Well, it worked, Linda agreed. They're suggesting next Tuesday at their offices. That's a shift in strategy, I mused, moving to the window to gaze at the Seattle skyline. They're retreating. Regrouping. Not a victory yet, Linda reminded me, but a sign the gala altered the dynamics. My phone chimed with a text from Marcus. Coffee today. I want to hear about the gala. I hesitated, then replied, how about lunch instead? I have news to share. The response was immediate. Name the place and time. We met at a small bistro in Capitol Hill, away from downtown spots where we might encounter business associates or worse. Marcus was already seated, his face lighting up when he saw me. You look different, he said as I slid into the chair across from him. More settled, I think. He smiled. The Mitchells requested a settlement conference. Yes. Things shifted after the gala. I had some interesting conversations with Walter and Patricia, and Ryan. Marcus nodded knowingly. You found leverage. I studied him over my menu. What makes you say that? Because I know you, Jessica Harmon. You're not just smart, you're strategic. The Mitchells wouldn't back down unless you gave them a compelling reason. I laughed softly. Your faith in me is flattering. Not faith. Observation. So, what's your plan for this settlement conference? We ordered lunch before I answered, waiting until the server was out of earshot. I want what I'm owed. Nothing more, nothing less. The loans I made to Ryan, documented with interest. A clean break with no lingering financial entanglements. The house in Madison Park. It's legally mine. My down payment, my name on the mortgage, but I'm willing to sell and split any profits above my investment. Marcus nodded approvingly. Reasonable but firm. The Mitchells won't know what hit them. They're not used to dealing with women who stand their ground, I said. Patricia runs that family with an iron fist, Marcus agreed. But outside their circle, she expects women to defer to wealth and social standing. He lowered his voice. Speaking of Patricia, I heard through the grapevine she's been unusually quiet at her usual social functions this week. No digs at you. No veiled references. Complete radio silence. I raised an eyebrow. Your grapevine reaches into Patricia Mitchell's social circle? He grinned. My mother served on 3 of the same charity boards. She's been keeping an ear out for me. Or for you. Your mother is spying on Patricia Mitchell for you? More like enjoying it, Marcus admitted. She never liked the Mitchells. Too pretentious. Our food arrived, and we ate in comfortable silence for a while, punctuated by genuine laughter and thoughtful pauses. Can I ask you something personal? Marcus said as we finished. I tensed but nodded. After everything, after how they've treated you, do you miss any of it? The marriage, the family connections, the social circle. The question caught me off guard. Not intrusive, just unexpected. I thought carefully. I miss the idea of it. The partnership I thought I had with Ryan. The family I hoped we might become. But the reality? No. I don't miss being judged constantly, found wanting. I don't miss watching Ryan choose his mother's approval over my dignity. And I don't miss pretending wealth and status are substitutes for real connection. Marcus's eyes held mine, thoughtful. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I think you've gained far more than you've lost. So do I agreed softly. Though sometimes I wonder what might have been if Ryan had been the man I thought he was. He didn't deserve you, Marcus said with quiet certainty. His words warmed me more than I expected. Thanks for saying that, I said. Any time. And for what it's worth, I mean it. After lunch, Marcus walked me to my car, his hand resting lightly at the small of my back, a gentlemanly gesture that sent a spark of awareness through me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Thanks for lunch, I said, fishing my keys from my purse. And for listening. Any time, he replied. Day or night. Whatever you need. He hesitated, then added, not just during the divorce. After too, if you want. I looked up, recognizing the careful invitation in his words. Marcus, I said quietly, no pressure. I know your life is complicated right now. But when things settle down, when I'm ready, I'd like to go to dinner. A real dinner. Not as friends. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. I'm a patient man, Jess. I'll be here when you're ready. As I drove away, I found myself smiling, not because of Marcus's interest, flattering though it was, but because, for the first time in years, I was making decisions based solely on what I wanted and needed. Not to please Ryan, or appease Patricia, or maintain appearances. Just what was right for me. It was a heady feeling. This freedom was one I intended to protect at all costs. The day of the settlement conference arrived with a mix of anticipation and resolve. I dressed carefully, tailored charcoal suit, professional but understated, hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. The impression I wanted to give was calm competence, not combative aggression. Linda met me in the lobby of her law firm's gleaming downtown offices. Ready for this? She asked as we headed toward the conference room. More than ready, I replied. The Mitchell contingent was already seated when we entered, Walter and Ryan on one side of the long table, their attorney James Blackwell from Lancaster and Associates on the other. Patricia was notably absent, which immediately raised an eyebrow. She never missed an opportunity to control the situation. Good morning, Linda said briskly as we took our seats. Thank you for arranging this meeting. I understand you have a settlement proposal to discuss, Blackwell began, sliding a document across the table. We do, Walter said, clearing his throat and looking uncomfortable. Jessica, I want to apologize for the way this situation has escalated. It was never our intention to damage your professional reputation or cause you personal distress. I kept my expression neutral, Walter Mitchell didn't apologize to anyone. Inside, I was surprised. I appreciate that, I said carefully. Though your TV appearance suggested otherwise. Walter looked embarrassed, a rare crack in his polished exterior. A regrettable miscalculation. I should have considered the broader implications more carefully. Water under the bridge, I said magnanimously. I'm here to move forward, not dwell on the past. Linda opened her portfolio and laid out the settlement terms. Blackwell continued, we're prepared to acknowledge the loans made to Mr. Ryan Mitchell during the marriage, with interest at the prime rate. The total is approximately $485,000. Linda and I exchanged a glance. The amount was accurate. They weren't lowballing us. Additionally, Blackwell added, we propose the Madison Park house be sold with proceeds divided proportionally. Given Ms. Harmon's significant contribution, she would be entitled to about 70% of any profits after sale. Fair. I remained silent, waiting for the catch. In exchange, Blackwell's tone shifted. We request two considerations. First, a mutual non-disparagement agreement covering both personal and professional matters. Second, that Ms. Harmon returns the Aston Martin Vantage to Mr. Mitchell. The car. Of course. I looked at Ryan, who had been silent. The car, is that important to you? He met my gaze for the first time since we entered. It's not about the car, Jess. It's what it represents. And what's that? I asked. You know what it is, he said quietly. The ultimate power move. You took the one thing I've wanted for years, not because you wanted it, but to prove a point. I considered his words, surprised by his insight. You're not entirely wrong, I admitted, but you're not entirely right either. I didn't buy the car to hurt you. I bought it to remind myself I could, that I had the means and the right to choose without considering your feelings first. After years of putting your wants ahead of mine, it was liberating. Walter shifted uncomfortably. This candid exchange clearly wasn't part of their plan. Be that as it may, Blackwell interjected smoothly, the vehicle is a significant asset, and Mr. Mitchell is willing to pay market value for it as part of the settlement. I glanced at Linda, who gave a small nod. A negotiation tactic. The car was legally mine, purchased with my money and registered in my name. They had no claim, but it was a bargaining chip. I'm willing to consider it, I said carefully, but I'd need something in return, beyond what's on the table. Blackwell's eyebrows rose. Such as? The fraud allegations, I said, my voice hardening. They need to be formally withdrawn, with a written statement acknowledging they were made without basis. Not just dropped or retracted. Walter and Ryan exchanged glances. That's a significant ask, Blackwell hedged. From a legal perspective, it's the minimum I should expect after your clients tried to destroy my professional reputation, I cut in. The loans and the house are just math, I continued. My career is my future. Linda backed me up seamlessly. We have documented evidence the allegations were made in bad faith. We're prepared to contest them vigorously if necessary. A court battle would mean exposing the Mitchell family finances, something Walter wants to avoid. Walter leaned over to whisper something to Blackwell, who frowned but nodded. We can agree to formally withdraw the allegations, Blackwell said, with the understanding the retraction will be mutually drafted to minimize embarrassment. Agreed, Linda said before I could respond. Now, about the timing of the transactions, the loan repayment. One more thing, I interrupted. Where's Patricia? Ryan stiffened. Walter's expression remained neutral. My wife had a prior engagement, Walter said smoothly. That doesn't sound like Patricia, I pressed. Mother's schedule is irrelevant, Ryan snapped. I studied them both. The tension, the careful avoidance. She doesn't know about this meeting, does she? Walter's jaw tightened, confirming my suspicion. We felt it more productive to reach an initial agreement without additional input, Blackwell explained diplomatically. I almost laughed. Patricia would be furious to learn they were offering concessions without her. Let them handle Patricia, I decided. That's not my problem anymore. Let's continue. The rest of the meeting proceeded surprisingly efficiently. We hammered out a timeline for loan repayment, agreed on the process for selling the house, and drafted language for the fraud retraction. The car would be returned to Ryan only after all other terms were fulfilled, ensuring the Mitchells kept their commitments. 2 hours later, we had a preliminary agreement meeting all my key requirements. Not a complete victory, but a resolution allowing me to move forward without a drawn-out legal battle. As we prepared to leave, Ryan asked for a moment alone. Linda gave me a questioning look, but I nodded. She and the others filed out, leaving Ryan and me across the conference table. "Thank you," he said after a moment of awkward silence, "for being reasonable today. For not dragging this out just to punish me. Contrary to what your mother thinks," I said, "I never wanted to destroy you." He nodded, looking down at his hands. "I know. I also know I don't deserve your consideration after everything." I studied the tension in his shoulders, the shadows under his eyes. The perfect polished Ryan Mitchell was cracking. "Is Amber still in the picture?" I asked, curiosity getting the better of me. He laughed humorlessly. "No. She left the morning after the gala. Said she hadn't signed up for this level of family drama." "I'm sorry," I said, surprised to mean it. "Don't be. You were right about her. About a lot of things." He hesitated, then added, "Mother doesn't know about the settlement terms yet. She's going to be difficult when she finds out." "That's not my concern anymore," I reminded him gently. "I know," he said. He ran a hand through his hair, that familiar gesture that now seemed more nervous tic than charming habit. "I'm trying to stand on my own 2 feet for once. Make decisions without her influence. It's harder than I expected." His admission surprised me. Ryan had always insisted he wasn't under Patricia's thumb, even when the evidence suggested otherwise. This self-awareness was new. "It gets easier," I assured him. "The more you do it, the more natural it feels." He looked at me, really looked at me. "You're different now. Stronger." "I've always been strong," I said. "You just couldn't see it because you weren't looking." He flinched at the gentle rebuke. "The car really means that much to you?" I asked. "It's not about the car itself. It's what it represents. But if returning it helps close this chapter cleanly, I can let it go." Relief flickered across his face. "Thank you," he said quietly. "And Jess, I really am sorry for everything." As apologies go, it was vague but sincere. I accepted it with a nod, knowing better than to expect detailed acknowledgement of every way he'd failed me. This was as close to closure as we'd get outside the law.